Starting with the Week 2 discussion, your grade for the week's discussion will count towards your course grade.
What do I need to do well in the discussions?
I grade the weekly discussions based upon 2 sets of criteria, qualitative and quantitative.
Starting with qualitative criteria, you need to post messages on 2 or more days of the discussion cycle. Discussions typically start on Saturdays or Sundays and continue through Monday or Tuesday night. You need to participate by posting comments on at least 2 of these 3 days. Suppose I log onto the discussion and just read other people's comments without posting any replies. Does that count as my participation for one day?
No. Participation means that you post 1 or more comments for that day. Just reading other people's comments and then logging off doesn't count. Also, you need to spread out your postings somewhat evenly over 2 or more days of the discussion cycle. Posting 1 reply or comment on one day and all the rest of your comments on a second day isn't as good as posting several comments on one day and several more comments on another day.
Oh. That explains why I got a low grade for week 1. I posted 8 comments on Monday and then only 1 on Tuesday.
Another thing to think about is to avoid waiting until the very end of the week's discussion to do most of your posting. It's all right to post right up to the 10 p.m. deadline on the last night of the discussion, but if you wait and post most of your comments at the very end, then most people won't be able to read and respond to your comments and I'll grade you down for the week.
I see your point. I'll try to spread out my comments and not post them mostly at the end of the discussion cycle.
Here's another thing to think about. You need to submit direct answers to all of the required initial discussion questions for the week. For example, if there are 3 initial discussion questions posted in the weekly overview for a given week, you are required to post direct answers to all 3 of those questions. That would be 3 direct answers in total.
Do I have to wait until the discussion opens in order to see the initial discussion questions? What if I want to start preparing for the questions earlier?
Good question. You'll find the initial discussion questions for the week in that week's overview, which I'll usually post by the Wednesday before the discussion starts.
Thanks. That answers that question.
I guess you've already figured out that you also need to submit 2 or more responses to other people's comments in each of the week's discussion threads. It's not enough just to answer the initial discussion questions for the week.
So, if there are 3 initial questions for the week, I need to answer those questions and also post a total of 2 responses for that week's discussions, for 5 postings in all?
No. Each of the original discussion questions for the week starts a separate discussion thread. If there are 3 initial questions, then that's 3 different discussion threads. You need to post at least 2 responses per thread. If there are 3 questions or threads for the week, then that's 6 responses, in addition to your 3 original answers to the initial questions. That's 9 postings in all.
I think I get it.
Once you've participated in 1 or 2 of the weekly discussions and I've sent you feedback, this should be clearer to you.
I guess so.
One more thing. You need to read most of your classmates' comments in the week's discussion. These discussion forums are meant to be a give and take in which people have thought about what everyone in the discussion has to say. Logging onto the discussion and posting a few comments without reading what others are saying isn't a good idea.
Okay, so that's it? That's all I have to remember?
Well, not quite. You also have to think about the qualitative criteria for the discussions.
What do you mean by that?
I'm looking at the quality of your responses, not just counting up how many comments you have posted. Your postings should clearly demonstrate that you have done the reading and examined the other background material for the week. You should refer to the readings in your comments.
That makes sense.
Your direct answers to the initial discussion questions should be fairly comprehensive, a full paragraph or 2 in length. If you have prepared more extensive answers to any of the questions, it would be better to divide these answers into 2 or more separate postings, as it's difficult for people to read long answers online.
Yeah. I have to admit that I often skip reading long posts myself.
Your responses to other people's comments should be thoughtful. They should also be respectful. It's okay to disagree with someone's ideas, but don't put them down or use an angry tone.
Yeah. I took a course last semester where 2 students kept on arguing with each other in the discussion forums and putting each other down. It was embarrassing.
For another thing, I would encourage you to raise questions based upon other people's comments or to provide additional information you have found on the internet or elsewhere about the issues being discussed.
Okay, I like searching the internet for information.
If you follow these guidelines, it is fairly easy to get a B for your weekly discussion grade. If you write more than the minimum number of required postings and if your comments demonstrate that you are giving serious consideration to the issues raised by the discussions and you are writing comprehensive, thoughtful posts, you can raise your grade above a B and into the A grade. Sorry. I'm only a cartoon character, so if I just now mispronounced the first letter of the alphabet, I apologize.
Getting back to your suggestions, you recommending that I post more than 2 responses to other people's comments per discussion thread?
Yes, I am.
How about if I just say good point to everyone's comments and don't add any additional thoughts?
While you're welcome to compliment your classmates on their ideas, don't reply only in very brief comments. Make sure that most of your postings are more comprehensive and thoughtful.
Okay.
I will be sending you detailed feedback comments for the first few weeks of the discussions, to make sure that you clearly understand what you need to do in order to do well in these discussions, and don't hesitate to ask for advice if you aren't sure as to what you need to be doing in the weekly discussions.
That's a relief. Thanks for going over all these discussion criteria.
You're welcome. See you online.